a future time,
Mm-hmm.
when we're 70,
Mm-hmm.
well, we'll just wait. I'm not going to out myself right now. But
he sensed it.
yeah,
He's been waiting.
no, it's great. We're part of one person's schedule.
Do you think he gets an email?
You get a notification.
Yeah, you get so he gets an email. It's like, hey,
at least
tune in now.
when you did something to it last night, I got a thing that was like, this video is now available. Cool. And I was like, huh.
Okay.
Because I'm a subscriber.
Yeah, you are.
I'm a fan of this. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, we're going to have merch soon.
I'm like a diehard fan of ours. I
actually want merch.
You do? We have to come up with some kind of like design concept first?
We can have bookmarks. It'd be so nerdy.
Yeah, but what would be the like, do we need a logo?
Yes. Does someone out there want to make us a logo? Wait, I have a friend who's a graphic designer.
Also a logo of what?
Of Visible.
I wonder if only you and I think that's funny.
I think it's really funny. It's like something totally unnecessary. Like, what if you could see Audible happening? Yeah. That's pretty much what it is.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if in this distant future,
yes,
not the one we were discussing, we will be generous enough to seeing this be like either like, oh, or be like, have warm feelings towards it rather than being like, what am I talking about?
What do you think?
Because a lot of times it happens that I see stuff from like my younger, not my childhood, but like, and I just like rip that person apart.
Oh.
Yeah.
I get very easily nostalgic. And I go, oh, like, sometimes I really like looking through old photos of myself. Not just of myself, like, of me with other people too. And even though I know I was miserable during those times, I get kind of like, oh, like I miss it.
You miss it no matter what it is?
Even if it was like, yeah.
I think that's a sign of liking your life.
I only like it when I'm not experiencing it. Like,
life is great when it's not happening.
Pretty much. Like, I feel very tender towards my like messed up self. And that's like something that I've been doing. No, I know. My little self.
You're like,
I'm working on it. No, I'm working on it. Okay. I'm working on it.
Okay. Good. Cool.
That photo, I don't know if you remember, but there was that photo that I sent you of my grade 6 prom. Yeah. And I have, I was like, Joey. And I had glasses.
You were not, Joey.
And I had my hair like half done up. And I was wearing a halter. Glasses. Yeah, I think so. And I was wearing a halter top from La Senza Girl.
I know that.
Do you know what La Senza is? Maybe it's only Canada. It's like Victoria's Secret. But no, I know. Okay, it's like Victoria's Secret. And then there's a La Senza Girl. And at the mall, and everyone was shopping there for clothes. It's so messed up, actually, when I think about it. It's like this girl version of a lingerie store. Anyway,
that's very strange.
And we're all like 10. Anyway, everyone was shopping there, and I was bigger than all my friends. And so everyone was shopping there and getting like size mediums or whatever. And I remember choosing my grade 6 graduation outfit there. And I was an extra large. And that was very tough for me.
Ooh.
But it's because it's a children's store.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough blow.
I'm sure. Little things like that really can
They
stick.
stay with you. Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm an extra large. You don't understand the world you're in.
Right.
Yeah. You don't have perspective. Anyway, so I'm working on that girl. I'm loving that girl.
She's super cute.
She doesn't look that different from how I look today, actually.
Yeah, that's kind of like the weird part is that you talk about her as if she's like just a horrendous other. She's not.
Or I'm just still fat. Anyway, I don't think I'll be repulsed by these.
Cool.
I think I'm gonna be like, oh, that's cute.
We're talking about watching these.
Yeah.
In the future.
As a time capsule.
In our 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s. I don't know.
I also think it really depends on like who. I used to talk about this in terms of people who look back and regret their lives, and then the people who don't regret their lives. And what we miss is that it so matters, like who is the person looking back. So if in your future, like you're pretty good with yourself.
Yeah, which is originally what the way I phrased it. I was like, I hope that the future us will be like.
Yeah. So if anything, it's weird. It's almost like, instead of being focused on like what's going on here,
yeah,
it's like, oh, I hope that the future me knows that cool,
and like appreciates whatever. Yeah,
it's just like accepting. I hope the future is amazing.
Janessa.
Do you ever want to? Oh, hello. Do you ever want to like send a video? Have you ever tried like writing a letter to yourself in the future?
In the future, no. I haven't.
No. I definitely sent letters.
I tried to do that at Ishan's at the baby shower.
Mm.
I thought it was a good idea, and it kind of capsized.
Okay.
I was like, let's everybody write a letter to. I can't remember how I had it figured out in my head, but like basically letters to Aditi and unknown baby. When did I make my debut?
Thank God he showed up, not some other baby.
If we were a different baby, I literally had this thought the other day. I was like, I would be miserable and suffering if my nephew was somebody else's nephew. Not also. Not like I had a sibling.
Yeah.
I mean like some different person.
Yeah, someone else got him.
I'd be like, I want that one.
Would you?
Yes!
You would have a nephew.
Yeah, who knows who
So
that
you'd
person
be like,
would be.
I think this is wrong. This is wrong.
If they were wrong, maybe.
Apparently that's what happens. You know how like people get paranoid about their spouses or their parents? And suddenly,
No.
okay, so it literally is the thing where like people will become convinced that all of a sudden their mother is not their mother, has been like replaced by a body double.
This sounds like pretty much anyone with a psychotic break.
But it's a very specific psychotic break, and actually like in other aspects, these people can be like 100% normal. It's just they are convinced that this person is not their mother. And it has and what they've deduced, like what they've narrowed it down to being, is that like for whatever reason, the like feeling part of their brain has gotten like disconnected when it comes to like this person. And so when they look at that person, like they're used to filling in, they're used to like there being an emotional connection. And when suddenly that's gone, the only possible explanation is that it's not actually their mother.
Well, what about all the other people from their childhood?
I don't know. I don't know if it. I
How
don't
can
know
you
why
like
it would only
selectively
affect-
erase your mother?
Exactly.
This is something else, my sister.
Yeah. But so that makes me think of like, if you would have that with your nephew, be like, I don't know what's wrong, but this isn't who he's supposed to be. We got the wrong one.
I think there's a movie about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with Angelina Jolie, where she gets reunited with her child who was abducted, and she's like, this isn't him. But I remember literally nothing other than that. Like, I don't remember if it was or wasn't him. I don't remember if she was mentally ill or if this was a sci-fi. Like, I don't remember anything else about it.
Well,
so it's good. It's good that I brought it up.
very good. Okay, I want us to go into this. So, like, what do you imagine is like, why do you think people are thinking this is a terrible time?
I mean, probably the people that are dying.
Okay,
Probably
right.
the shit tons of
I don't
people
mean
that are
that.
sick and
I more
dying.
mean just like the people who have to stay at home.
So yeah, we were talking about how everybody thinks that this quarantine is terrible and like something that we all have to bear and really like, okay, this is happening now, and like try to find ways to basically like, yeah, that it's a overall like a net negative. And I guess I was wondering today if that is actually the case, or if that is only the case, or rather, I'm not saying this very clearly, how much that's a choice. To think of it as like, is it a choice or is it not really a choice because like people are dying and you can't see your friends? I think people want to like see each other.
Yeah, but
That's
all
why it's
these
a
people
terrible
were
thing.
like constantly like, oh, I just want Netflix and chill.
Yeah.
And now they get to do that all day. And they're like, oh, this is the worst thing ever.
People don't like being forced to do anything. Like
No,
restricted.
They just always want the opposite. Like,
not being allowed to go out makes you want to go out.
it seemed already like life was in a way progressing towards this. Of all of your needs could be met at home. You
This is
never have to leave
Janessa's
the house.
dystopian foretelling that surfaces every once in a while.
What do you mean?
She's like, more and more we're not going to exist, and we're going to be virtual beings. and
Oh,
stuff.
that's my what?
Yeah, you have like sort of a cohesive
I had this idea of like,
future worldview.
dating if you can like date without ever seeing the other person, and we can all just use like video filters, doesn't matter what you actually look like. And then would we learn to just like not value looks in a completely different way and have a completely different value system in terms of self-esteem and confidence and who's like, I don't know, who's cool and who isn't, if it wasn't based on looks, because that was just interchangeable. Anyway.
Yeah, that's like a very cohesive. that's like
Those
hand in glove with what you were saying before about more and more we were coming to this anyway.
Those are the ideas. Those are
That inevitable and
see those.
this is where we're heading.
Nikia is getting like all these like amazing like creative project ideas, and I just get these hypothetical like, what if life becomes like this, which is not very useful.
Maybe it is, or maybe it's not.
Maybe it is, if it can be put into something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also talking about like sheltering in place. Like, is that what are the good things about it? And is there something that we're getting now that we couldn't have been getting if there was no quarantine? Mm. And I guess like broached the topic of feeling like because we are sort of contained in this house, it's like the oven door is closed and the temperature just like slowly rises, and this is not like there's no like and then we die because
it's like a frog in boiling water situation.
Yeah, it's not quite that.
No, it's just a nice bath.
Yeah, okay. like a nice, nesty, warm place. Like an incubator. Mm. So I feel like actually being forced to be in my house and not interact with the world has counterintuitively had a bit of an impact, and maybe not. Maybe tomorrow I'll be like, scrap that. I feel so scared. But I feel very like sheltered. And safe. Weirdly.
Yeah. That's a funny reaction to have. You would think that it would be the opposite.
Yeah. But I think it's because I probably like check my ideas and plans like every other day I have a new plan for a new idea for like a project. And I think a lot of them are only either surfacing or getting voiced or like even being considered because of this other world that we're in. Where I'm just like home with the person that I live with and talk to all the time. Yeah, I'm just like, wait, what if it's a good thing? What if things come of it? I mean, not what if, because this is definitely, it's unavoidable that things come of it that would never have happened otherwise.
Yeah.
But yeah, even like the people who, all the like online, all the cool stuff that's happened because, as a result of people being separate is all like, even though we're here, let's still like try to be human. And I guess like I was wondering if it could be a positive thing without being like reactionary to.
Right, like let's make lemonade out of these lemons.
Like what if it's not even lemons? What if it's a sweet fruit that you don't have to add sugar to and squeeze? What if it's a freaking... Okay.
Yeah. Like it's been,
like, is it really a situation that requires you to add sugar and still?
Right. Like some people's reaction to this, and I've definitely been guilty, is like, okay, I gotta make the best of this. I better be productive, like even more productive than I was being. And like now's the time. And then some people like have seemed to go the other route where they're like, no, I will not be doing that. I will not be like writing a novel or creating my like online course. I'm going to take this time to just rest and just be.
I don't know what those people are doing.
I don't know either. I think, you know, like in the way that you can see all the, have you seen like the aerial views of all the places in the world? I forget where I was looking at this, probably just Twitter, I don't know, something came up. It shows like before and afters of the aerial views of like China and like New York and
China and New York.
No, but like main cities. And anyway, it's just like you can see like the air quality first of all. And then, like, there was definitely one at Venice, and other people have been talking about this in terms of Venice. It's like the water is, like, clear and still.
Hmm.
And I think something similar can happen for all of our lives when, like, right, we're still, we're just at home. And, like, finally, like, I don't know, from that place, something can actually get created as opposed to just, like, turbulent waters. It's just a confusing and distracting and a mess.
It's distracting. There's an invitation for comparison. There's a reminder that there's always going to be judgment on the other. You know what I mean? Like all the things we can be afraid of in creating something.
Yeah.
All of the things that could be forces to stifle an idea or the growth of something like small and fragile.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm a chronic comparer. I don't know if that's a word. I think it's like a disease. Lately, more and more, I'm like, oh my God, it's terrible. And for some reason, like, and this, it was pretty immediate that I had this reaction. Like, now I kind of feel like I don't need to do that anymore. Like, we're at ground zero. I get to just make whatever, and I don't need to be worried about who's judging it or what it is in comparison to what other people are doing. Yeah, that's nice. It's a relief.
Right. So yeah, there's like something nice about it. It gives you this like giant bump in your like safety quotient. I think probably not driving is really great for a lot of people who live here.
Oh, yeah. Right. I didn't even think of that. Yeah,
There's
just
no,
like
like-
not dealing with traffic
Yeah.
for a change.
And even if it's okay traffic, which never happens here, but you're like changing lanes, you're following a map. There's like so much going on. And all of that is just like quieted. Yeah, I'm like afraid to admit that part of me likes that.
I kind of like it too. There's
How
part of me
great
that's
is
like, what am I going to do in this building? I don't want to go back to that.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. I don't want to go back to the struggle. The like, I really don't want to go to this.
Either we both have personality disorders, or like either we both have mood disorders, or maybe there's some people.
I think that's how most people live. Doing things they don't want to do because they have to. And then constantly like, trying to make them enjoy it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And like granted for good reason because, you know, often it's like you have to go to work because you have to put money on the table and and now it's like we all so we don't have to feel guilty staying home. We can like still kind of fun. It's like we get to actually like experience what it's like to not be doing the things that we don't want to be doing.
There's a huge caveat.
Yeah.
That we should have mentioned at the top of this, which is that when people can't go to work, they have to be economically, financially stable enough for this not to be hugely stressful in that sense. Because if you can't go to work, then you can't do your rent. So I think that's another, like, there's people dying and stuff.
Oh,
This is another huge reason, I think, why people are like, this is not good.
yeah.
So it's a point of privilege for us that we're like sitting here talking about.
It's a point of privilege. I'd also be curious about like how people are dealing with it. I kind of think like there's a little bit of like, what else are we going to do going on? And in that sense, I don't know, you gotta just ride it out. Like, sure, you can worry about it, but we don't know when this will be over. I really sincerely think that, like, rent should just be free for everyone for a while. For everyone. It should just be like, everyone has to stay home, therefore, let's make sure everyone has a home. That's what I think.
Do you know what the like houseless population is doing?
I don't feel I was talking about that with these. That seems ridiculous.
Yeah, I wonder what the situation is. Oh my God. This amount of opening my brain made me tired.
I feel energized.
You do?
I felt tired earlier. Now I'm like,
that's great.
The oceans. The dolphins are coming back.
The dolphins are back, guys. They're so hot right now. There's dolphins everywhere.
What else is coming back? I'm really tired. I finished Tiger King. No, I finished Tiger King, and I thought it was very interesting how like you get to the end of it, and suddenly you're like, "Oh right, this movie's about big cats." And at the very, very end, they're like, "We're victims here, the cats," and that hadn't really been brought up.
That's interesting. Yeah. I haven't seen, I know about this story, but I haven't seen this particular series. And a friend of mine was like, yeah, the animal treatment, she hadn't finished it yet.
Okay.
And she was like, the animal cruelty is like, basically could be worse. And her attention was drawn to Doc in the same way that your attention was hugely drawn to Doc. Yeah. I don't know who this person is. But one of the things, even in the podcast, that I remember feeling is like there are no like heroes in the story at all.
Yeah, definitely. There's no one you're rooting for. Except there's one guy I like, the guy without legs. I'm rooting for him.
I don't remember.
But yeah, at the very, very end, suddenly everyone is talking rhapsodically about, all this war led to, like, this war did nothing for anyone. And most of all, this war did nothing for any of the animals.
But they were, like, fucked from the beginning.
But all these people, like, especially at the beginning, claim to be fighting for them.
Right. I mean, that's probably, narratively, that's probably deliberate.
Oh,
right?
Definitely. But it just seems, right, you're saying it's, like, deliberate that, like, you almost forget about that, and then at the very end.
Yeah. It might be.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, if you didn't realize about what's going on with the cats, like, just like from a purely documentary, like, structurally,
right.
If you're going to make it about this thing happening between people, and cats are the background for it, then how do you deal with the cats throughout the series? Throughout the documentary? Like, where would you put them?
Right. No, actually, the fact that you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that was intentional. And so it's very smart. Where you get so caught up in the drama between humans that you kind of, they're kind of in the background. You're like, oh yeah, there's another cat. There's another cat. There's another cat.
I also thought it was really interesting the ways that people's activism, and this is true with like the feminist movement, whatever, every movement, that there are such different interpretations of how to do the same thing. Like arguably both people are trying to help. They could be and should be pushing in the same direction, but they're not.
It was. I loved the part where they were saying that like each, because you have Carol, then you have Doc, and then you have Joe, and in their own way, they all have their own little cults and their own little like way of doing it. And even Carol, who like apparently she's the, I don't know, ethical one,
right?
The amount of people that work for her, and there were all these levels. She's like, you start off with as like a yellow shirt, and then you graduate to a red shirt after 2 years of service. Like after like 2 years of like grunge work, getting paid nothing, 12-hour days, then you move up to a red shirt, and then it sounded like Scientology. I was like, what?
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. I don't know anything about that.
And she was like, I don't know anyone. Like she doesn't know most of the people who work for her.
Crazy. I gotta see it. Hopefully. I'll probably have that done by tomorrow. I don't think it's very long.
I couldn't. It took me a few days.
I've noticed.
I found it really upsetting.
Yeah.
Really upsetting. I don't know how people binge watch that in a day.
I can binge watch some pretty horrifying shit.
That's true.
Like one of the worst things that. Well, I don't need to bring that up, right? Like one of the worst things I've ever seen. Why would I be talking about that?
Yeah, we don't need to talk about
that I binge watched. Don't Fuck with Cats is not great. Yeah, that was bad. But no, it's the trials of this. I'm talking about it. Okay. In War and Peace, the book that we've been reading this entire time, Pierre is now a Mason.
Yeah, he is.
I believe so, right?
He was ushered into the Brotherhood. Yeah, he went through the rite. He got an apron and 3 pairs of gloves. And let's see.
That's all he got.
No, I think he got something else in his gift bag.
In his doggy, his to-go bag. What do you call those things that you get, like you get when you go to a party?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. That's what it's like. Yeah.
Yeah, but like take-home things. Anyway, swag bag.
Is it like something to carve? What is it?
What?
Maybe it was something that I was like, I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna pretend like I do.
Nuh-uh.
Anyway, he got some stuff.
Got some cool shit.
Did he swear an oath? Kind of.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, he's like, I will protect the Brotherhood. I'll be obedient.
And then he struggles like literally the next day with it.
Oh, and then Prince Vasily was like, Pierre,
come along now.
What are you doing? My daughter is waiting for you. And he said, please, sister. Huh? Prince Vasily is Helena's father. Cool. Pierre was like, I am not listening to you anymore. Please leave now. So I don't know. It's got some backbone.
It's just in its zygote phase, but
yeah,
it's happening. was the end of chapter 9. Oh, did anything else? Yes, other stuff happened.
Princess Mary?
Yes, I remember laughing about the statue
Oh, yeah.
having the same face. Oh, that hilarious letter that was sent to Andrew from... Were you looking at my upper lip just now?
Oh, you're full club. But no, it's not it's not this area. I always think it's this area, but really it's the upper lip, right?
That they keep talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not a lip. It's not a lip.
Okay. No.
Okay. It's very sexual that it's just looking at people's eyes.
All the better to avoid their hands. He's got a hand phobia. He sees hundreds and hundreds of hands, and he's like, too dry, too scaly, too chubby, too red. Oh, they all sound horrendous.
Yes, there was a letter from Bilibin.
Yes, Bilibin, thank you.
Good old Bilibin! How could we have forgotten him?
I know. He's always there with a
good word.
With a quip.
Bomo.
He's equipped. Get it? Because he's like always ready with a quip.
I got it.
Get it? Because quip is really equipped. We get it. Okay, what else?
The child was sick. Little
yeah.
baby Nicholas was sick.
And it seemed like maybe his dad cared about that.
Yeah, he cared about it for a second.
Yeah, distinctly for a second.
When he thought that he died. And then he's like, oh, good, he's fine. So we think he's going to go back to the war. Because he hasn't been there.
Janessa thinks that. I'm confused.
I think he's like...
I'm sure.
Because he read this letter and it was like, basically, everything is a mess.
Yeah, it was.
And then Prince Andrew was like, this is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he's going to ride in on a white stone and be like, hey guys, I have a plan.
It's only a matter of time before his delusions take over.
Yeah. So,
for sure.
That's all that happened.
I think that's all that happened. It was all Pierre, right? Because we started with Pierre and we ended with Pierre.
Did we?
Yeah, because you remember starting with Pierre?
I do.
And you remember ending with Pierre?
I don't. What did we end with Prince Andrew?
Or just kidding?
We did. Yeah. Because he said, we ended, yes, this is the one thing left me now. He said with a sigh.
It is his child is an object, narcissism.
Cool.
Extension of himself, narcissism.
Did anyone like his wife?
Nope.
There's a passage where he's like, thank God she's dead. And he's like enjoying his life at home.
I missed that.
Yeah.
He's enjoying quarantine.
Chapter 10, book 5. That's what I want?
Yes.
Book 5, chapter 5.
Here we go.
Okay.
Soon after his admission to the Masonic Brotherhood, Pierre went to the Kiev province, where he had the greatest number of serfs, taking with him full directions which he had written down for his own guidance as to what he should do on his estates.
When he reached Kiev, he sent for all his stewards. It'd be funny if it is pronounced Kiev, and they were messing with us, and now everyone has adjusted to in Kiev.
People adjusted so fast. They got in line like extremely fast. All these news anchors, you're like, you didn't know it was Kiev.
Okay.
And like Rachel was the only one who acknowledged it. She was like, apparently we're all now saying Kiev. Apparently it's been Kiev the whole time.
When he sent for all his stewards to the head office and explained to them his intentions and wishes. He told them that steps would be taken immediately to free his serfs, and that till then they were not to be overburdened with labor. Women, while nursing their babies, were not to be sent to work. Assistance was to be given to the serfs. Punishments were to be admonitory. and corporal.
They don't get physically wronged,
It's more
obviously.
just like
They just get admonished.
Yeah, okay. Admonitory, not corporal, and hospitals, asylums, and schools were to be established on all the estates. Some of the stewards, they were semi-illiterate foremen among them, listened with alarm, supposing these words to mean that the young count was displeased with their management and embezzlement of money. Some, after their first fright, were amused by Pierre's lisp and the new words they had not heard before.
Pierre has a lisp?
I did not think so.
We have to go back.
He has never spoken with the lisp.
We have to go back to where they introduced Pierre and everything that he said.
Everything. Bird. I don't. Maybe the lisp has a different meaning. Like, is there another meaning to lisp that's like Pierre's language?
I don't think so.
Okay.
You want me to keep reading?
Speech. No. Oh, okay. And the new words they had not heard before. Others simply enjoyed hearing how the master talked, while the cleverest among them, including the chief steward, understood from the speech how they could best handle the master for their own ends.
The chief steward expressed great sympathy for Pierre's intentions, but remarked that besides these changes, it would be necessary to go into the general state of affairs, which was far from satisfactory.
Despite Count Bezhukov's enormous wealth, since he had come into an income which was said to amount to 500,000 rubles a year, Pierre felt himself far poorer than when his father had made him an allowance of 10,000 rubles. He had a dim perception of the following budget.
Of course I got the budget. About 80,000 went in payments on all the estates to the land bank. About 30,000 went for the upkeep of the estate near Moscow, the townhouse, and the allowance to the three princesses. I wonder who those three are.
Yeah, those three princesses.
Which ones?
The ones that were supposed to get the inheritance.
I don't remember the other two. I mostly remember the...
Katish.
Katish, I remember.
I think it was Katish, and then
Mole?
the pretty one with the mole,
The
and the other one we never mentioned.
Okay. About 15,000 was given in pensions and the same amount for asylums. 150,000 alimony was sent to the countess. About 70,000 went for interest on debts. The building of a new church, previously begun, had cost about 10,000 in each of the last 2 years, and he did not know how the rest, about 100,000 rubles, was spent, and almost every year he was obliged to borrow. Jeez! Besides this, the chief steward wrote every year telling him of fires and bad harvests, or of the necessity of rebuilding factories and workshops. So the first task Pierre had to face was one for which he had very little aptitude or inclination. Practical business.
He discussed estate affairs every day with his chief steward, but he felt that this did not forward matters at all. He felt that these consultations were detached from real affairs and did not link up with them or make them move. On the one hand, the chief steward put the state of things to him in the very worst light, pointing out the necessity of paying off the debts and undertaking new activities with serf labor, to which Pierre did not agree. On the other hand, Pierre demanded that steps should be taken to liberate the serfs, which the steward met by showing the necessity of first paying off the loans from the land bank, and the consequent impossibility of a speedy emancipation.
The steward did not say it was quite impossible, but suggested selling the forests in the province of Kostroma, the land lower down the river and the Crimean estate, in order to make it all possible. All of which operations, according to him, were connected with such complicated measures, the removal of injunctions, petitions, permits, and so on, that Pierre became quite bewildered and only replied, yes, do so. Pierre had none of the practical persistence that would have enabled him to attend to the business himself, and so he disliked it. Only the steward, for his part, tried to put account that he considered consultations very valuable for the proprietor and troublesome to himself.
In Kiev, Pierre found some people he knew, and strangers hastened to make his acquaintance, and joyfully welcomed the rich newcomer, the largest landowner of the province. Temptations to Pierre's greatest weakness, the one to which he had confessed when admitted to the lodge, were so strong that he could not resist them. Again, whole days, weeks, and months of his life passed in as great a rush and were as much occupied with evening parties, dinners, lunches, and balls, giving him no time for reflection, as in Petersburg. Instead of the new life he had hoped to lead, he still lived the old life, only in new surroundings.
He did?
Mm-hmm.
That's not great.
Really, it's hard to change.
What happened to the whole plan? I would like to talk about change at some point.
Okay.
Do you think this is the point?
No.
Do you think this is the point where we talk about change?
I don't know.
Or is it later?
That needs to incubate more.
I'm very aware.
Just hold on to it.
Of the 3 precepts of Freemasonry, Pierre realized that he did not fulfill the one which enjoined every Mason to set an example of moral life, and that of the 7 virtues he lacked 2, morality and the love of death. Number 7. Trixie number 7.
I don't think he has the other ones down pat.
Which ones?
What? So there's like obedience? I really remember that one.
Because it was his favorite.
He's like, oh, very good at that one.
Yeah.
Very, very good at that. But he's not obeying.
Yeah.
So why does he think he's good at that?
He shouldn't.
I forget the others. I'm sure they were like generosity and humility and honesty. I don't know what they are.
He consoled himself with the thought that he fulfilled another of the precepts, that of reforming the human race, and had other virtues, love of his neighbor, and especially generosity.
In the spring of 1807, he decided to return to Petersburg. On the way, he intended to visit all his estates and see for himself how far his orders had been carried out, and in what state were the serfs whom God had entrusted to his care and whom he intended to benefit.
The chief steward, who considered the young count's attempts almost insane, unprofitable to himself, to the count, and to the serfs, made some concessions. Continuing to represent the liberation of the serfs as impracticable, he arranged for the erection of large buildings, schools, hospitals, and asylums on all the estates before the master arrived. Everywhere preparations were made not for ceremonious welcomes, which he knew Pierre would not like, but for just such gratefully religious ones. With offerings of icons and the bread and salt of hospitality, as, according to his understanding of his master, would touch and delude him.
The southern spring, the comfortable, rapid traveling in a Vienna carriage, and the solitude of the road all had a gladdening effect on Pierre. The estates he had not before visited were each more picturesque than the other. The serfs everywhere seemed thriving and touchingly grateful for the benefits conferred on them. Everywhere were receptions, which, though they embarrassed Pierre, awakened a joyful feeling in the depth of his heart. In one place, the peasants presented him with bread and salt, and an icon of St. Peter and St. Paul, asking permission, as a mark of their gratitude for the benefits he had conferred on them, to build a new chantry to the church at their own expense in honor of Peter and Paul, his patron saints. In another place, the women with infants in arms met him to thank him for releasing them from hard work. On the third estate, the priest, bearing a cross, came to meet him, surrounded by children whom, by the count's generosity, he was instructing in reading, writing, and religion. On all his estates, Pierre saw with his own eyes brick buildings erected or in course of erection, all on one plan for hospitals, schools, and almshouses, which were soon to be opened. Everywhere he saw the steward's accounts, according to which the serfs' manorial labor had been diminished, and heard the touching thanks of deputations of serfs in their full-skirted blue coats.
What Pierre did not know was that the place where they presented him with bread and salt and wished to build a chantry in honor of Peter and Paul was a market village where a fair was held on St. Peter, and that the Roman reputation had begun the chantry before, but that 9/10 of the peasants in that villages
I don't know.
were in a state of the greatest poverty. He did not know that since the nursing mothers were no longer sent to work on his land, they did still harder work on their own land. He did not know that the priest who met him with the cross oppressed the peasants by his exactions, and that the pupils' parents wept at having to let him take their children, and secured their release by heavy payments. He did not know that the brick buildings built to plan were being built by serfs whose manorial labor was thus increased, though lessened on paper. He did not know that where the steward had shown him in the accounts that the serfs' payments had been diminished by a third, their obligatory manorial work had been increased by a half. And so Pierre was delighted with his visit to his estates, and quite recovered the philanthropic mood in which he had left Petersburg, and wrote enthusiastic letters to his brother instructor, as he called the grandmaster.
How easy it is! How little effort it needs to do so much good, thought Pierre, and how little attention we pay to it.
He was pleased at the gratitude he would receive, but felt abashed at receiving it. This gratitude reminded him of how much more he might do for these simple, kindly people.
The chief steward, a very stupid but cunning man, stupid but cunning, okay, he saw perfectly through the naive and intelligent count and played with him as with a toy.
Naive and intelligent.
Yeah, what's going on with this? Okay, he doesn't sound very intelligent. Nothing I've seen of Pierre has been like, he's intelligent.
Yeah.
Seeing the effect these prearranged receptions had on Pierre, pressed him still harder with proofs of the impossibility and above all the uselessness of freeing the serfs, who were quite happy as it was.
Pierre in his secret soul agreed with the steward that it would be difficult to imagine happier people, and that God only knew what would happen to them when they were free, but he insisted, though reluctantly, on what he thought right. The steward promised to do all in his power to carry out the count's wishes, seeing clearly that not only would the count never be able to find out whether all measures had been taken for the sale of the land and forests and to release them from the land bank, but would probably never even inquire and would never know that the newly erected buildings were standing empty and that the serfs continued to give in money and work all that other people's serfs gave. That is to say, all that could be got out of them. Well, that was depressing.
Seriously. Yeah.
Cool.
Don't try to be a philanthropist. No. Hire your stewards more carefully.
Really, only interface with Masons. If a steward was a Mason, boom.
Oh, such a difference.
Hmm.
You know, that's what he should have done. Is he should have invited his steward into the Brotherhood.
Well, not this rubbish one. A different one.
No, but if he's supposed to save all of mankind, we're supposed to save him too.
Okay. I don't know that he's quite up to snuff.
Hmm.
Morally speaking, like Pierre, I guess is.
Even though he didn't change his ways at all. And he just gave a bunch of orders.
Same shit, different.
He didn't do anything. He just said, hey, you, do all this.
Yeah.
And then we're supposed to feel bad for him because his orders weren't.
Why supposed to feel bad for him?
He gave orders. Do something. I don't know.
We're not supposed to feel bad for him.
Are we? I just feel like we're supposed to feel bad for people.
I feel bad for the people who supposedly are doing better.
Yeah.
But then what?
And then had to be like, thank you so much.
Oh, this is the best. Sire.
Chapter 11. Do you think this is Sire? Yeah, we do. Don't they?
I have no idea. I wondered that as soon as I said it.
Chapter 11. Returning from his journey through South Russia in the happiest state of mind, Pierre carried out an intention he had long had of visiting his friend Bolkonsky, whom he had not seen for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bogucharovo lay in a flat, uninteresting part of the country, among fields and forests of fir and birch, which were partly cut down. The house lay behind a newly dug pond filled with water to that stretched along the high road in the midst of a young copse in which were a few fir trees.
The homestead consisted of a threshing floor, outhouses, stables, a bathhouse, a lodge.
I thought that was bathhouse.
Oh, that.
For the Batman.
And a large brick house with semicircular facade still in course of construction. Round the house was a garden newly laid out. The fences and gates were new and solid. 2 fire pumps and a water cart, painted green, stood in a shed. The paths were straight, the bridges were strong and had handrails. Everything bore an impress of tidiness and good management. Some domestic serfs Pierre met, in reply to inquiries as to where the prince lived, pointed out a small, newly built lodge close to the pond. Anton, a man who had looked after Prince Andrew in his boyhood, helped Pierre out of his carriage, said that the prince was at home, and showed him into a clean little anteroom.
Pierre was struck by the modesty of the small, though clean house after the brilliant surroundings in which he had last met his friend in Petersburg.
He quickly entered the small reception room with its still unplastered wood walls redolent of pine, and would have gone further, but Anton ran ahead on tiptoe and knocked at a door.
"Well, what is it?" came a sharp, unpleasant voice.
"A visitor," answered Anton.
"Ask him to wait," and the sound was heard of a chair being pushed back.
Pierre went with rapid steps to the door and suddenly came face to face with Prince Andrew, who came out frowning and looking old. Pierre embraced him, and lifting his spectacles, kissed his friend on the cheek and looked at him closely.
"Well, I did not expect you. I am very glad," said Prince Andrew.
Pierre said nothing. He looked fixedly at his friend with surprise. He was struck by the change in him. His words were kindly, and there was a smile on his lips and face, but his eyes were dull and lifeless, and in spite of his evident wish to do so, he could not give them a joyous and glad sparkle. Prince Andrew had grown thinner, paler, and more manly-looking, but what amazed and estranged Pierre till he got used to it were his inertia, and a wrinkle on his brow indicating prolonged concentration on some one thought.
"That's the wrinkles I don't want."
For prolonged, just don't ever concentrate on anything.
How am I supposed to practice handstand? This is a little sound.
Here you go. See you like that.
As is usually the case with people meeting after a prolonged separation, it was long before their conversation could settle on anything. They put questions and gave brief replies about things they knew ought to be talked over at length. At last the conversation gradually settled on some of the topics at first lightly touched on, their past life, past lives.
I hope this will be documented.
Plans for the future, Pierre's journeys and occupations, the war, and so on. The preoccupation and despondency which Pierre had noticed in his friend's look was now still more clearly expressed in the smile with which he listened to Pierre, especially when he spoke with joyful animation of the past or the future. It was as if Prince Andrew would have liked to sympathize with what Pierre was saying, but could not. The latter began to feel that it was in bad taste to speak of his enthusiasms, dreams, and hopes of happiness or goodness in Prince Andrew's presence. He was ashamed to express his new Masonic views, which had been particularly revived and strengthened by his late tour. He checked himself, fearing to seem naive, yet he felt an irresistible desire to show his friend as soon as possible that he was now a quite different and better Pierre than he had been in Petersburg.
40 years.
Okay.
I can't tell you how much I have lived through since then. I hardly know myself again.
Yes, we have altered much, very much since then, said Prince Andrew.
Well, and you? What are your plans?
Plans, repeated Prince Andrew ironically. My plans, he said, as if astonished at the word. Well, you see, I'm building. I mean to settle here altogether next year.
Pierre looked silently and searchingly into Prince Andrew's face, which had grown much older.
Right, you mentioned. No, I meant to ask, Pierre began, but Prince Andrew interrupted him.
Why talk to me, yes. Tell me about your travels and all you have been doing on your estates.
Pierre began describing what he had done on his estates, trying as far as possible he wanted to tell him about.
Yeah, but now it feels bad for Prince Andrew because he looks old, so he's like, no, there's nothing going on.
You're right, life has sucked.
Yeah.
Okay. Prince Andrew several times prompted Pierre's story of what he had been doing, as though it were all an old-time story, and he listened not only without interest, but even as if ashamed of what Pierre was telling him. This is going great.
Pierre felt uncomfortable, and even depressed in his friend's company, and at last became silent.
Tell you what, my dear fellow, said Prince Andrew, who evidently also felt depressed and constrained with his visitor. I am only bivouacking here, and have just come to look around. I'm going back to my sister today. I will introduce you to her. But of course you know her already, he said, evidently trying to entertain a visitor with whom he now found nothing in common. We will go after dinner. And would you now like to look around my place?
They went out and walked about till dinner time, talking of the political news and common acquaintances like people who do not know each other intimately. Prince Andrew spoke with some animation and interest only of the new homestead he was constructing and its buildings. But even here, while on the scaffolding, in the midst of a talk explaining the future arrangements of the house, he interrupted himself.
However, this is not at all interesting. Let us have dinner, and then we'll set off.
At dinner, conversation turned on Pierre's marriage.
I was very much surprised when I heard of it, said Prince Andrew.
Pierre blushed, as he always did when it was mentioned, and said hurriedly, I will tell you sometime how it all happened, but you know it is all over, and forever.
Forever, said Prince Andrew. Nothing's forever.
But you know how it all ended, don't you? You heard of the duel.
And so you had to go through that too?
One thing I thank God for is that I did not kill that man, said Pierre.
Why so? Asked Prince Andrew. To kill a vicious dog is a very good thing, really.
No, to kill a man is bad. Wrong.
Why is it wrong? Urged Prince Andrew. It is not given to man to know what is right and what is wrong. Men always did and always will err, and in nothing more than in what they consider right and wrong.
What does harm to another is wrong, said Pierre, feeling with pleasure that for the first time since his arrival, Prince Andrew was roused, had begun to talk, and wanted to express what had brought him to his present state.
And who has told you what is bad for another man? He asked.
Bad! Bad! Exclaimed Pierre. We all know what is bad for ourselves.
Yes, we know that, but the harm I am conscious of in myself is something I cannot inflict on others, said Prince Andrew, growing more and more animated and evidently wishing to express his new outlook to Pierre. He spoke in French. I only know two very real evils in life, remorse and illness. The only good is the absence of those evils. He just said that no one knows what good is. To live for myself, avoiding those two evils, is my whole philosophy now.
And love of one's neighbor and self-sacrifice, began Pierre. No, I can't agree with you. To live only so as not to do evil and not to have to repent is not enough. I lived like that. I lived for myself and ruined my life. And only now when I am living, or at least trying, Pierre's modesty made him correct himself, to live for others, only now have I understood all the happiness of life. No, I shall not agree with you, and you do not really believe what you are saying. Prince Andrew looked silently at Pierre with an ironic smile.
When you see my sister, Princess Mary, you'll get on with her, he said. Perhaps you are right for yourself. What? Yeah. Perhaps you are right for yourself, he added after a short pause. But everyone lives in his own way. You lived for yourself and say you nearly ruined your life and only found happiness when you began living for others. I experienced just the reverse. I lived for glory. And after all, what is glory? The same love of others, a desire to do something for them, a desire for their approval. So I lived for others, and not almost, but quite, ruined my life. And I have become calmer since I began to live only for myself.
What do you mean by living only for yourself? Asked Pierre, growing excited. What about your son, your sister, and your father?
But that's just the same as myself. They are not others, explained Prince Andrew. The others, one's neighbors, le prochain, as you and Princess Mary call it, are the chief source of all error and evil. Le prochain, your Kiev peasants to whom you want to do good.
And he looked at Pierre with a mocking, challenging expression. He evidently wished to draw him on.
Oh, no. You are joking, replied Pierre, growing more and more excited. What error or evil can there be in my way, though I did very little and badly? What evil can there be in it? Unfortunate people, ourselves, people like ourselves, were growing up and dying with no idea of God and truth beyond ceremonies and meaningless prayers, and are now instructed in a comforting belief in future life, retribution, recompense and consolation. What evil and error are there in it if people were dying of disease without help, while material assistance could so easily be rendered, and I supplied them with a doctor, a hospital, and an asylum for the aged? And is it not a palpable, unquestionable good if a peasant or a woman with a baby has no rest, day or night, and I give them rest and leisure? Said Pierre, hurrying and lisping. He's suddenly fucking deserved.
And I give them rest and leisure.
And I have done that, though badly, and to a small extent. But I have done something toward it, and you cannot persuade me that it was not a good action. And more than that, you can't make me believe that you do not think so yourself. And the main thing is,
This makes no sense.
I didn't even read it because of the lists. I was really focused on the list.
Yeah.
What did you just say? What did I just say?
Persuade me it was not a good action.
Got it.
And that you don't actually think so yourself.
Cool.
Yeah.
He continued, that I know, and I know for certain, that the enjoyment of doing this good is the only sure happiness in life.
Happiness. Yes. If you put it like that, it's quite a different matter, said Prince Andrew. I build a house and lay out a garden, and you build hospitals. The one and the other may serve as a pastime. But what's right and what's good must be judged by one who knows all, but not by us. Well, you want an argument, he added. Come on, then.
They rose from the table and sat down in the entrance porch, which served as a veranda.
Come, let's argue then, said Prince Andrew. You talk of schools, he went on, crooking a finger. Education and so forth. That is, you want to raise him, pointing to a peasant who passed by them, taking off his cap, from his animal condition and awaken in him spiritual needs. Well, it seems to me that animal happiness is the only happiness possible, and that is just what you want to deprive him of. I envy him, but you want to make him what I am, without giving him my means. Then you say, lighten his toil. But as I see it, physical labor is as essential to him, as much a condition of his existence, as mental activity is to you or me. You can't help thinking. I go to bed after 2 a.m, thoughts come, and I can't sleep but toss about till dawn, because I think and can't help thinking, just as he can't help plowing and mowing. If he didn't, he would go to the drink shop or fall ill. Just as I could not stand his terrible physical labor, but should die of it in a week, so he could not stand my physical idleness, but would grow fat and die. The third thing, what else was it you talked about? And Prince Andrew crooked a third finger. He is dying, and you come and bleed him and patch him up. He will drag about as a cripple, a burden to everybody for another 10 years. It would be far easier and simpler for him to die. Others are being born, and there are plenty of them as it is. It would be different if you grudge losing a laborer. That's how I regard him. But you want to cure him from love of him. And he does not want that. And besides, what a notion that medicine ever cured anyone. Killed them, yes, said he, frowning angrily and turning away from Pierre.
Prince Andrew expressed his ideas so clearly and distinctly that it was evident he had reflected on this subject more than once, and he spoke readily and rapidly like a man who has not talked for a long time. His glance became more animated as his conclusions became more hopeless.
Well, that is dreadful, dreadful, said Pierre. I don't understand how one can live with such ideas. I had such moments myself not long ago. You should know, in Moscow and when traveling, but at such times I collapse so that I don't live at all. Everything seems hateful to me, myself most of all. Then I don't eat, don't wash. And how is it with you?
Why not wash? That is not cleanly, said Prince Andrew. On the contrary, one must try to make one's life as pleasant as possible. I'm alive, that is not my fault. So I must live out my life as best as I can without hurting others.
But with such ideas, what motive have you for living? One would sit without moving, undertaking nothing.
Life as it is, it leaves no one peace. I should be thankful to...
Topical. Yeah, it is.
Life as it is leaves no one peace. I should be thankful to do nothing, but here, on the one hand, the local nobility have done me the honor to choose me to be their marshal. It was all I could do to get out of it. They could not understand why I have not the necessary qualifications for it, the kind of good-natured, fussy shallowness necessary for the position. Then there's this house, which must be built in order to have a nook of one's own in which to be quiet. And now there's this recruiting.
Why aren't you serving in the army?
After Austerlitz, said Prince Andrew gloomily. After Austerlitz? No. Thank you very much. No. Thank you very much. I have promised myself not to serve again in the active Russian army. Active, they will. And I won't, not even if Bonaparte were here at Smolensk threatening Bald Hills. Even, which wouldn't say stuff like this. Even then, I wouldn't, definitely not in a book. If you're in a book, don't say stuff like this.
Okay.
Cool. Even then, I wouldn't serve in the Russian army. Well, as I was saying, he continued, recovering his composure. Now there's this recruiting. My father is chief in command of the 3rd District, and my only way of avoiding active service is to serve under him.
Then you are serving.
I am.
He paused a little while.
And why do you serve?
Why, for this reason. My father is one of the most remarkable men of his time. But he is growing old, and though not exactly cruel, he has too energetic a character. He is so accustomed to unlimited power that he is terrible. and now he has this authority of a commander-in-chief of the recruiting granted by the emperor. If I had been 2 hours late a fortnight ago, he would have had a paymaster's clerk at Yakhonovna hanged, said Prince Andrew with a smile. So I am serving because I alone have any influence with my father, and now and then can save him from actions which would torment him afterwards.
Well, there you see.
Yes, but it is not as you imagine, Prince Andrew continued. I did not, and do not, in the least care about that scoundrel of a clerk who had stolen some boots from the recruits. I should even have been very glad to see him hanged, but I was sorry for my father. That, again, is for myself.
Prince Andrew grew more and more animated. His eyes glittered feverishly while he tried to prove to Pierre that in his actions there was no desire to do good to his neighbor.
There now, you wish to liberate your serfs, he continued. That is a very good thing, but not for you. I don't suppose you ever had anyone flogged or sent to Siberia, and still less for your serfs. If they are beaten, flogged, or sent to Siberia, I don't suppose they are any the worse off. In Siberia, they lead the same animal life, and the stripes on their bodies heal, and they are happy as before. But it is a good thing for proprietors who perish morally, bring remorse upon themselves, stifle this remorse, and grow callous, as a result of being able to inflict punishments justly and unjustly. It is those people I pity. But it's a good thing for proprietors who perish morally. Okay. It is those people I pity, and for their sake, I should like to liberate the serfs. You may not have seen, but I have seen how good men brought up in these traditions of unlimited power, in time when they grow more irritable, become cruel and harsh, are conscious of it, but cannot restrain themselves and grow more and more miserable.
I don't know if I tracked that fully.
He's protected.
Prince Andrew spoke so earnestly that Pierre could not help thinking that these thoughts had been suggested to Prince Andrew by his father's case.
Maybe. He did not reply.
So that's what I'm sorry for. Human dignity, peace of mind, purity, and not the serfs' backs and foreheads, which, beat and shave as you may, always remain the same backs and foreheads.
No, 1,000 times no. I shall never agree with you, said Pierre. Don't say stuff in books.
When you're in a book, don't ever say
Note, next time you find yourself in a book,
don't say things like, I will never ever.
Yeah.
Don't say things like, even when Napoleon is on my doorstep, which would never happen. Don't be saying it. And drove to Bald Hills. Prince Andrew, glancing at Pierre, broke the silence now and then with remarks which showed that he was in a good temper.
Pointing to the fields, he spoke of the improvements he was making in his husbandry.
Pierre remained gloomily silent, answering in monosyllables and apparently immersed in his own thoughts.
He was thinking that Prince Andrew was unhappy, had gone astray, did not see the true light, and that he, Pierre, ought to aid, enlighten, and raise him. No, why do you think so? The improvements in his husbandry?
Or is he saying, but why do you think like you do?
Oh, maybe. Because it says Pierre suddenly began.
Yeah. No, but why do you think so? Pierre suddenly began, lowering his head and looking like a bull about to charge. Why do you think so? You should not think so.
Think? What about? Asked Prince Andrew with surprise.
About life, about man's destiny. It can't be so. I myself thought like that, and do you know what saved me? Freemasonry. It's a secret. Which I've just announced. No, don't smile. Freemasonry is not a religious ceremonial sect, kind of seems like it is, as I thought it was. Freemasonry is the best expression of the best, the eternal aspect of humanity.
And he began to explain Freemasonry as he understood it to Prince Andrew. He said that Freemasonry is the teaching of Christianity freed from the bonds of state and church.
Jesus plus nothing.
Oh, a teaching of equality, brotherhood, and love.
Only our holy brotherhood has the real meaning of life. All the rest is a dream, said Pierre. Understand, my dear fellow, that outside this union all is filled with deceit and falsehood, and I agree with you that nothing is left for an intelligent and good man but to live out his life like you, merely trying not to harm others. But make our fundamental convictions your own. Join our brotherhood. Give yourself up to us. Let yourself be guided, and you will at once feel yourself, as I have felt myself, a part of that vast, invisible chain, the beginning of which is hidden in heaven, said Pierre. Christ.
Prince Andrew, looking straight in front of him, listened in silence to Pierre's words. More than once, when the noise of the wheels prevented his catching what Pierre had said, he asked him to repeat it, and by the peculiar glow that came into Prince Andrew's eyes and by his silence, Pierre saw that his words were not in vain, and that Prince Andrew would not interrupt him or laugh at what he said.
They reached a river that had overflowed its banks, and which they had to cross by ferry. While the carriage and horses were being placed on it, they also stepped on the raft.
Prince Andrew, leaning his arms on the raft railing, gazed silently at the flooding waters glittering in the setting sun.
Well, what do you think about it? Pierre asked. Why are you silent?
What do I think about it? I am listening to you. It's all very well. You say, join our brotherhood, and we will show you the aim of life, the destiny of man, and the laws which govern the world. But who are we, men? How is it you know everything? Why do I alone not see what you see? You see a reign of goodness and truth on earth, but I don't see it.
Pierre interrupted him.
Do you believe in a future life? He asked.
A future life? Prince Andrew repeated, but Pierre, giving him no time to reply, took the repetition for a denial, the more readily as he knew Prince Andrew's former atheistic convictions.
You say you can't see a reign of goodness and truth on earth, nor could I, and it cannot be seen if one looks on our life here as the end of everything. On earth, here on this earth, Pierre pointed to the fields, there is no truth. All is false and evil. But in the universe, in the whole universe, there is a kingdom of truth. And we, who are now the children of earth, are eternally children of the whole universe. Don't I feel in my soul that I am part of this vast, harmonious whole?
Wait, if everything is false and evil on earth, why is he spending his time being generous to all the false and evil people?
I'm not sure.
Cool.
I thought he did think there was good.
Yeah. But he has said, yes, you're right, everything sucks here.
So maybe he more means like evil as in like evil, like not the truth. I think maybe that might be the meaning. There is no truth, all is false and evil. But in the universe, in the whole universe, there is a kingdom of truth. And we who are now the children of earth are eternally children of the whole universe. Don't I feel in my soul that I am part of this vast harmonious whole? Don't I feel that I form one link, one step, between the lower and higher beings, in this vast harmonious multitude of beings in whom the deity, the supreme power, if you prefer the term, is manifest? If I clearly see, that ladder leading from plant to man, why should I suppose it breaks off at me and does not go farther and farther? I feel that I cannot vanish, since nothing vanishes in this world, but that I shall always exist and always have existed. I feel that beyond me and above me there are spirits, and that in this world there is truth.
Yes, that is Hoda's theory, said Prince Andrew. But it is not that which can convince me, dear friend. Life and death are what convince. What convinces is when one sees a being dear to one, bound up with one's own life, before whom one was to blame and had hoped to make it right. Prince Andrew's voice trembled and he turned away. And suddenly that being is seized with pain, suffers, and ceases to exist. Why? It cannot be that there is no answer, and I believe there is. That's what convinces. That is what has convinced me, said Prince Andrew.
Yes, of course, said Pierre. Isn't that what I'm saying?
No. All I say is that it is not argument that convinces me of the necessity of a future life, but this. When you go hand in hand with someone, and all at once that person vanishes there, into nowhere, and you yourself are left facing that abyss and look in. And I have looked in.
Oh, that's it then. You know that there is a there, and there is a someone. There is the future life. The someone is God.
Prince Andrew did not reply. The carriage and horses had long since been taken off onto the farther bank and reharnessed. The sun had sunk half below the horizon, and an evening frost was starring the puddles near the ferry. But Pierre and Andrew, to the astonishment of the footmen, coachman, and ferryman, still stood on the raft and talked.
If there is a God and future life, there is truth and good, and man's highest happiness consists in striving to attain them. We must live, we must love, and we must believe that we live not only today on this scrap of earth, but have lived and shall live forever, there in the whole, said Pierre as he pointed to the sky.
Prince Andrew stood leaning on the railing of the raft listening to Pierre, and he gazed with his eyes fixed on the red reflection of the sun gleaming on the blue waters. There was perfect stillness. Pierre became silent. The raft had long since stopped, and only the waves of the current beat softly against it below. Prince Andrew felt as if the sound of the waves kept up a refrain to Pierre's words, whispering, "It is true. Believe it."
Oh. He sighed and glanced with a radiant, childlike...
There's a mason right under the raft, being like, "It's true. It's true.
He sighed and glanced with a radiant, childlike, tender look at Pierre's face, flushed and rapturous, but yet shy before his superior friend.
Yes, if it only were so, said Prince Andrew. However, it is time to get on, he added, and stepping off the raft, he looked up at the sky to which Pierre had pointed, and for the first time since Austerlitz saw that high, everlasting sky he had seen while lying on that battlefield. On something that had long been slumbering, something that was best within him, suddenly awoke, joyful and youthful in his soul. It vanished as soon as he returned to the customary conditions of his life, but he knew that this feeling, which he did not know how to develop, existed within him. His meeting with Pierre formed an epoch in Prince Andrew's life. Though outwardly he continued to live in the same old way, inwardly he began a new life. Most interesting.
Pierre was like, I am trying.
Maybe he did decide that everything was different once he saw all the happy serfs.
Okay.
Like that tour may have been like, oh, it's all words, but I have done something. I don't have another.
I was gonna say that almost like that explanation of like Prince Andrew started to live differently inwardly, made me think like, oh, maybe like Prince Andrew is the one who's gonna have like the true awakening. Because he doesn't need to spout it and have it look a certain way.
Wow. And Pierre does?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure where this is going. I feel like there's going to be some.
I don't think he's going anywhere. I think everyone's going to be dead and buried.
What did you think about the fact that Prince Andrew obviously? It's funny, like how he reveals his emotions. So sorry. What do you think about how Andrew feels about the little princess?
I think this is a weird time to mention it.
Yeah. Like it hasn't really been clear until now.
Yeah, it hasn't even really been hinted at until now.
Except for like that he feels guilty because he keeps seeing his wife's face. Yeah.
But the fact that he like wanted to make it right with her and that was important and
right. Like that never came up. There's like a period of time where we realize Prince Andrew is alive and he's come to the house. And we have no idea what his state of mind is.
And that's fine if it's rushed because a lot is happening. But then after she dies, that's what he gets left with.
Right.
He's all of those things like, we were just like, what just happened?
Yeah.
But also he doesn't go into any of that.
Mm-hmm.
He goes into weird stuff about the son. Which also, again, at first seemed like, do you even love him? And then later in that, like, vignette about that little line about the son, it seemed like, oh, yeah, no, he does. He does. But he didn't have that moment with the princess.
Mm-hmm.
The moment where you realize he loves his son, you know?
Yeah.
Where he's like, everything is lost.
Yeah. When
he thinks he's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he never had that.
That moment of like clarity for us, where you're like, oh, there it is. There's his heart. Like, there's what's really going on with him. There's no moment like that with the princess. So you're kind of like, yeah, I guess nothing. And this is another weird way of like missing, like skipping parts.
Yeah.
You're like, I guess he's just moved along because the author hasn't told us anything about it.
Yeah, it's a weird jumping. It's weird to jump.
What's weird to jump?
Like, it's weird to, like, create this. Obviously, these arcs, like, it's an epic, so characters go lots of different places. But it's weird to create this moment of, like, and then Prince Andrew, like, realized what was important. And then you completely, like, dash that on the stones. Yeah. Because he comes home, and then it looks like he just sinks into depression.
Yeah, because he like turns into his father.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Why have that revolution feel like?
Which makes me, and this is partly what I was saying about change.
Mm-hmm.
Or what I was thinking about change. If there are like moments where after that everything is different inwardly.
Mm-hmm.
Because narratively speaking, There certainly are. And we like want that to be going on. We've wanted it multiple times. For him to see the sky and be like, oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
And then for things to be different. But then they kind of just like backslide into what was happening before. So like, don't be so sure he's not going to backslide.
Right.
After this.
Are you more speaking to like the nature of change? That's typical,
I wonder.
that's more typical of human beings.
I'm not sure. Because I find it, and I don't know how much of this is just like peculiarities of my own personality and the way that I don't know how much of it is that and how much of it is, I don't know how to speak to the nature of change.
Yeah.
But it's interesting for me, and even with Pierre, like, how do people just like suddenly decide they believe in God? Like literally, I'm asking literally, how do you do that? And this also reminds me of a bunch of stuff. I don't know if you feel like talking about it, but of like transformation. Like, what is transformation a thing?
All right.
Like, it sounded like I was going to keep talking, but maybe there's nothing to say after that. Is transformation a thing?
I'd say yes. I think it goes into identity. And like being consistent with that identity in speech and action.
But then in speech and action is sort of then where it happens.
Yeah.
As opposed to in the like,
In the epiphany.
in
That's
the,
just it.
in
And
the
I-
looking at the sky.
And I sometimes wonder, like, because people do talk about, like, and I know the exact moment
Yeah.
changed in an instant. And, like, I think that's only in hindsight that you think it changed in an instant. Like, I can look back on my life and I, like, know, like,
You have
certain-
instance
I have instance, yes.
where
And
everything was different after that?
yeah, where I was like, that was a rock bottom for me.
Is that analytic? Is it coming from an analytical place for you? Or
It came from, like, I think a recognition when it was going on. I was like, this. And then, like, a decision. And it was all very, like, symbolic. Like, I'm thinking of a specific instance when I was, like, literally on the floor and I couldn't get up off the floor. And I was calling my sister and I was like, I don't know what to do. And then my sister was like, you have to go. And so I literally had to, like, pick myself up and leave. And so, like, all of that together is, like, so simple. Like, it's just, like, really obvious in a way. And that has been a major marker in my life.
what kind of a marker? Because did you then become the kind of person who leaves?
I mean, like, the
Following-
ironic thing about that is, like, then I did come back. Like, if I actually follow, like, the real
Right.
story, I came back, like, that same day.
So did you really leave?
But that's just it. But because, like, I have this, like, story of, like, that's the marker, like, I've stayed true to that. Very true to that.
True to
That,
what?
like, I made a decision that, like, things had to change. And I'm still following that through. But
So
it
it's
hasn't
both,
been,
then?
it's both. I think, like, it's always ongoing. So I don't know, like, it happens. Does it happen instantly? I'd say no. I was like, oh. And I keep, like, I think maybe I'm very compelled by that idea that, like, one day I'll get it. I'll get
Yeah.
it, and it'll be like, bang, and everything
Yeah.
will just be, like, different.
Yeah.
Suddenly I'll have, like, superpowers, you know? It's like,
And one
I'll
of the
get
places,
bit by
yeah,
a radioactive spider.
one of the places I think that's most obvious in storytelling is when it comes to religion and God, because there's something so tangible about it, and That's fascinating to me. Like, what happens? I can much more understand someone who feels like they were saved, or like couldn't walk, and then they had some miracle, and they were like, "That's why I believe in God, because I couldn't walk and now I can." That I can understand how it happens, but I don't really understand the mechanisms by which one fine day believes in God.
I mean, I actually think this is a great illustration, I think, of how that happens.
Chinasa loves this book.
No, because you have the trajectory. Like, so someone asks him a question, do you believe in God? And it's not a, like, search in your soul. It's kind of like there's a right answer to this question. I think Alexa thought I was talking to her. What did you just say? Alexa, off!
She's an eavesdropper. She's not even in the same room. Look at her freaking little ear around the corner.
Yes, did you call me? What was I saying? Oh yeah, okay. So Pierre's like, if he wants to be in the Brotherhood, which he does, and he's like, do you believe in God? And without any like conviction, he's just like, yeah, okay, yes, I believe in God. And then because like he joins, like then because like now his identity is kind of reliant on like to be part of the Brotherhood, he has to believe in God. And so like more and more he builds up like a belief in God because that justifies his new existence. And then he sees it more and more in everything he does and everything he interacts with.
Makes a lot of sense.
I think that's how it happens.
I set up and made up binary.
Mm-hmm.
I was like the victim of my own invented binary.
You were?
Yeah, because I was like, is it a transformation? Are there moments of transformation, or does it take time?
Yeah.
That's a binary
both.
question.
It's both. Like you make a decision in an instant, but like then you have to walk the path.
It's so funny. I feel like so much of solving problems in life is like, this is about to be so wide. It's the widest statement I think I've ever made.
Whoa, this better be good. You really set it up.
No, I just mean it's broad as fuck.
Okay.
So much of the like problems or the stuff to work out is like the premise. It's the premise is what's wrong. It's not that there's an answer. It's not that there's not. Of course, there's no answer because the premise is wrong. So, like, really, all issues that exist are not like you're trying to simplify a biome into centimeters. Like, you're like, is it 6 centimeters or is it 3 feet? Which is it? And actually, it's like an ecosphere. There's like a bunch of different species and a bunch of different kinds of soil and all these different plants and animals like this. And then there's the atmosphere and like the thing that protects the temperature. And then there's the climate. Like there's so much going on in everywhere.
Starting to sound forced. You mean step out a little bit and get more perspective. You actually, this sounds like, this is Hitchhiker's Guide. This is like, yeah, here you have the answer, but do you even know what the question is? Like, it's so often, people don't know the question. Like, the premise is wrong. Like, the context is limited in some way.
Yeah.
Like, you're looking at it from a lens of, like, from
And you're creating
from a
the limit.
perspective that it,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's constrained. Like,
And
so,
you're creating the limits
right.
by asking the question.
Yeah.
Like you're defining the some certain parameters by setting up a question like this.
Right. So even if you get the answer, like, it's not ultimately.
It's not going to be.
satisfying.
Yeah. Which is why the answer to almost everything is like both. All of them. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's always the fucking answer.
Wait, why is it both because of that?
Because the premise sets up that it's either A or it's B.
Yeah.
And the answer is not A, and the answer is not B, even though those seem to be the only like reasonable responses.
Right.
If someone wants you to pick A or B,
Yeah.
those are the options that present themselves, A and B. But because the premise is flawed, it's like both A and B and everything that comes between A and B. And everything that goes before A and everything that comes after B.
Mm-hmm.
Do I sound like an insane person, do you think?
I think you could. But I sound like an insane person all the time. I know what you mean. And I think you actually put it brilliantly.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
I'm like, whoa. Do we get that on tape?
Do we get it? We're gonna watch it back like
when we're 70.
Like,
what?
What the shit are you talking about?
Can we do this when we're both like when we're 70? In the same
Well, we're 70 at the same time, bruh.
We'll be so much smaller.
When who's 70?
Yeah.
You or me?
When I'm 70, how about that?
If I'm still alive.
You're gonna be so small.
What do you mean? I'm just gonna get bigger and bigger.
Is that your baby?
I'm 100% gonna be one of those like people that you're like, get down with your bad self.
What?
You know those people that you're like, hell yeah, old lady in the gym.
Yeah, you are. Oh my
like
god.
those people who you're like, whatever she's doing.
Yeah.
That.
You'll be like Olga.
I'm gonna be like the coolest old who's Olga?
She was this Canadian / Polish athlete. Like octogenarian athlete.
Yeah.
Who was like 94 or something and throwing discus and doing like sprints. And she, I had no idea that there's like a whole industry, is that what you call it? Like there's a whole like world of athleticism past like certain age markers. And no
Fucking
one
awesome.
could beat her. Yeah, no one could beat her.
That's awesome.
I think that could be yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't work out today.
You did yoga.
I did yoga.
Yeah.
Yay, okay. We only read 2 chapters.
I know.
What time is it?
It's 9:06.
Oh, okay. Do you want to read another?
Yeah, let's do one more.
Is it, do you know what, if it's on? Is it long?
No, it's 8 pages,
Oh,
which is short. We've read 1,051 pages.
what?
It's pretty good.
1,000, that's so mean. Okay. You can start if you want.
Okay. Chapter 13. It was getting dusk when Prince Andrew and Pierre drove up to the front entrance of the house at Bald Hills. As they approached the house, Prince Andrew, with a smile, drew Pierre's attention to a commotion going on at the back porch. A woman, bent with age, with a wallet on her back, and a short, long-haired young man in a black garment had rushed back to the gate on seeing the carriage driving up. 2 women ran out after them, and all 4, looking round at the carriage, ran in dismay up.
Okay. Those are his gods, folk, said Prince Andrew. They've mistaken us for my father. This is the one matter in which she disobeys him. He orders these pilgrims to be driven away, but she receives them.
But what are God's folk? Asked Pierre.
Prince Andrew.
All folk.
Yeah. The liars and the evil doers and the cheats and everybody. Prince Andrew had no time to answer. The servants came out to meet them, and he asked where the old prince was and whether he was expected back soon.
The old prince had gone to the town and was expected back any minute.
Prince Andrew led Pierre to his own apartments, which were always kept in perfect order and readiness for him in his father's house. He himself went to the nursery.
"Let us go and see my sister," he said to Pierre when he returned. "I have not found her yet, but she is hiding now, sitting with her God's folk. It will serve her right. She will be confused, but you will see her God's folk. It's really very curious."
"What are God's folk?" asked Pierre.
"Come and you'll see for yourself."
Princess Mary really was disconcerted, and red patches came on her face when they went in. In her snug room, sounds filthy, with lamps burning before the icon stand, a young lad with a long nose and long hair, wearing a monk's sat on the sofa beside her, behind a samovar. Near them, in an armchair, sat a thin, shriveled old woman with a meek expression on her childlike face.
"Andrew, why didn't you warn me?" said the princess with mild reproach as she stood before her pilgrims like a hen before her chickens.
Chickens being babies? Or
Maybe?
Or
just like other
boy
chickens? Let's say
No,
babies.
let's
say babies.
Babies. Charmé de vous voir. Je suis très content de vous voir, she said to Pierre. I doubt she said it like that. She said to Pierre as he kissed her hand. She had known him as a child, and now his friendship with Andrew, his misfortune with his wife, and above all, his kindly, simple face disposed her favorably toward him. Mary loves the project. She looked at him with her beautiful, radiant eyes and seemed to say, "I like you very much, but please don't laugh at my people." After exchanging their first greetings, they sat down.
And Ivanushka is here too.
How would you do that? What does it look like to be like, "I like you very much, but please don't laugh at my people"?
I feel like that.
Sorry, Ivanushka.
And Ivanushka is here too, said Prince Andrew, glancing with a smile at the young pilgrim.
"Andrew," said Princess Mary imploringly, "il faut que vous sachiez que c'est une femme," said Prince Andrew to Pierre. It's necessary
to know that that's a
this is a woman.
What? Okay. Andrew, au nom de Dieu, Princess Mary repeated.
It was evident that Prince Andrew's ironical tone towards the pilgrims and Princess Mary's helpless attempts to protect them were their customary long-established relations on the matter.
Mais ma bonne amie, said Prince Andrew, vous devriez au contraire m'être reconnaissante de ce que j'explique au Pierre votre intimité avec ce jeune homme.
Okay, what happened to saying, they said in French?
I don't know.
Since when is it actually
he just says like, I feel French today.
Is this book going to turn into being in Russian at some point?
I hope so.
Cool.
But my dear, you ought, on the contrary, to be grateful to me for explaining to Pierre your intimacy with this young man.
Okay. Really? Said Pierre, gazing over his spectacles with curiosity and seriousness, for which Princess Mary was especially grateful to him, into Ivanushka's face, who, seeing that she was being spoken about, looked round at them all with crafty eyes.
Very crafty eyes.
She's like, "These guys are looking at me." I don't know what that means.
Princess Mary's embarrassment on her people's account was quite unnecessary. They were not in the least abashed. The old woman, lowering her eyes but casting side glances at the newcomers, had turned her cup upside down and placed a nibbled bit of sugar beside it, and sat quietly, in her armchair, the cup down.
Really?
So she put her cup up, saying, "Tea, please," hoping to be offered another cup of tea. Ivanushka, sipping out of her saucer, looked with sly, womanish eyes from under her brows at the young men.
"Where have you been? To Kiev?" Prince Andrew asked the old woman.
"I have, good sir," she answered garrulously. Just at Christmas time, I was deemed worthy to partake of the holy and heavenly sacrament at the shrine of the saint. And now I'm from Kolyazin, master, where a great and wonderful blessing has been revealed.
And was Ivanushka with you?
I go by myself, benefactor, said Ivanushka, trying to speak in a bass voice. I only came across Pelageya in Yoknovo.
Right. Why is she being addressed as Ivanushka, and he's asking if Ivanushka was with him?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm confused about who's Ivanushka. I thought at first it was the old lady.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, okay. Oh wait, where have you been? Asked people. And addressed the old woman. Maybe Ivanushka is someone else. So he's talking to the old woman. And Ivanushka is another woman.
I'm not clear about it. Pelageya. How do you say that?
Pelageya?
Pelageya interrupted her companion. She evidently wished to tell what she had seen.
In Kolyazin, master, a wonderful blessing has been revealed.
What is it? Some new relics? Asked Prince Andrew.
Andrew, do leave off, said Princess Mary. Don't tell him, Pelageya.
No, why not, my dear? Why shouldn't I? I like him. He is kind. He is one of God's chosen. He's a benefactor. He once gave me 10 rubles, I remember. When I was in Kiev, crazy Cyril says to me he's one of God's own and goes barefoot summer and winter. He says, why are you not... You think this person looks like Wim Hof? Crazy Cyril?
Yes.
You think that's Wim?
Yeah, definitely.
He says, why are you not going to the right place? Go to Kolyazin, where a wonder-working icon of the Holy Mother of God has been revealed. On hearing those words, I said, goodbye to the holy folk, and went.
All were silent. Only the pilgrim woman went on in measured tones, drawing in her breath.
So I come, master, and the people say to me, a great blessing has been revealed. Holy oil trickles from the cheeks of our blessed mother, the Holy Virgin Mother of God.
All right, you can tell us afterwards, said Princess Mary, flushing.
Let me ask her, said Pierre. I'll ask her. Did you see it yourself? He inquired.
Oh, yes, master, I was found worthy. Such a brightness on the face like the light of heaven, and in the blessed mother's cheek, it drops and drops.
But dear me, that must be a fraud, said Pierre naively, who had listened attentively to the pilgrim.
Master, what are you saying? Exclaimed the horrified Pelageya, turning to Princess Mary for support.
They impose on the people, he repeated.
Lord Jesus Christ, exclaimed the pilgrim woman, crossing herself. Oh, don't speak so, master. There was a general who did not believe and said, the monks cheat. And as soon as he said it, he went blind. And he dreamed that the Holy Virgin Mother of the Kiev catacombs came to him and said, believe in me, and I will make you whole. So he begged, take me to her. Take me to her. It's the real truth. I'm telling you, I saw it myself. I don't think she saw it herself. So he was brought quite blind straight to her, and he goes up to her and falls down and says, make me whole, says he, and I'll give thee what the Tsar bestowed on me. I saw it myself, master, the stars fixed into the icon. Well, what do you think? He received his sight. It's a sin to speak so. God will punish you, she said admonishingly, turning to Pierre.
How did the star get into the icon? Pierre asked.
And was the Holy Mother promoted to the rank of general? Said Prince Andrew with a smile.
Pelageya suddenly grew quite pale and clasped her hands.
Master, what a sin! You who have a son, she began, her pallor suddenly turning to a vivid red. Master, what have you said? God forgive you! And she crossed herself. Lord, forgive
you never ever ask if the Holy Mother was made a general.
Lord, forgive him, my dear, what does it mean? She asked, turning to Princess Mary. She got up and, almost crying, began to arrange her wallet. She evidently felt frightened and ashamed to have accepted charity in a house where such things could be said, and was at the same time sorry to have now to forego the charity of this house.
Now, why need you do it? Said Princess Mary. Why did you come to me?
Come, Pelageya, I was joking, said Pierre. Princess, ma parole, je n'ai pas voulu l'offenser. I didn't mean to offend her. I did not mean anything. I was only joking, he said, smiling shyly and trying to efface his offense. It was all my fault, and Andrew was only joking.
Pelageya stopped doubtfully, but in Pierre's face there was such a look of sincere penitence, and Prince Andrew glanced so meekly now at her and now at Pierre that she was gradually reassured.
Gradually. Okay.
Change happens overnight, but that, she's like... is 14 long?
No.
Do you want to?
Okay. One more. One more.
One more and all done.
All done. And all done. Can you get my sound bites for our channel for me? So good.
100%.
At the end of every episode, that was that?
I sent you the one where he's like, hello, 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 hello. Yeah?
I think so. I want that when he says goodnight to everything.
Oh, yeah.
There's his own version of goodnight moon.
Good night, kids. Good night.
Chapter 14. The pilgrim woman was appeased, and being encouraged to talk, gave a long account of Father Amphilochus, who led so holy a life that his hands smelled of incense, and how on her last visit to Kiev, some monk she knew let her have the keys to the catacomb, and how she, taking some dried bread with her, had spent 2 days in the catacombs with the saints. I'd pray a while to one, ponder a while, and then go on to another. I'd sleep a bit, and then again go, and kiss the relics, and there was such peace all around, such blessedness, that one don't want to come out, even into the light of heaven again.
Pierre listened to her attentively and seriously. Prince Andrew went out of the room, and then, leaving God's folk to finish their tea, Princess Mary took Pierre into the drawing room.
You are very kind, she said to him.
Oh, I really did not mean to hurt her feelings. I understand them so well, and have the greatest respect for them.
Princess Mary looked at him silently and smiled affectionately.
You feel like something's going to happen here?
Mm.
Between the Jesus?
No one has mentioned Jesus.
You know it's Jesus. You know that, right? You didn't? From all the, highly Christian...
What do you mean it's Jesus?
What do you mean, what do I mean it's Jesus? We're talking about the Jesus God.
No, they're talking about God.
Well, sometimes they are, but they're one and the same.
Oh.
Jesus is God's son, but also God. But these people are into Jesus. Don't get it twisted.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Were you saying that, it's some old God?
Old God? I don't know. I don't know if it's Protestant. Does that make a difference?
No.
That's not the difference?
No.
Is that where I draw the line?
Between Protestant? Judaism and Christianity?
No, I'm thinking more in terms of, for whatever reason, some movies. For some reason I think of, Catholicism as being more into God, the Father, and Protestantism being more into the Son.
I don't know if that's true. I think that the Catholics are more intense, and so they tend towards the punishing God.
Mm.
But I don't know if it's a binary. Sometimes I want to act like it froze, like the screen froze,
yeah,
and see how long I could stay still on FaceTime, with my nephew, to see if he thinks That's good for us.
Is he really?
No.
He's too smart.
He's way too smart. Okay.
Let's see if these two fall in love.
I have known you a long time, you see, and am as fond of you as of a brother, smiled Star. She said. How do you find Andrew? She added hurriedly, not giving him time to reply to her affectionate words. I am very anxious about him. His health was better in the winter, but last spring his wound reopened and the doctor said he ought to go away for a cure. And I am also very much afraid for him spiritually. He's not a character like us women who, when we suffer, can weep away our sorrows. He keeps it all within him. Today he is cheerful and in good spirits. By the way, I feel like the men have cried a lot in this book.
Yeah.
Haven't they?
Okay. Maybe Prince Andrew doesn't cry.
No, Prince Andrew is definitely
But yeah, the men are like, they're in touch with their feelings.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a gender-based thing. Anyway. Today he is cheerful and in good spirits, but that is the effect of your visit. He is not often like that. If you could persuade him to go abroad, he needs activity, and this quiet, regular life is very bad for him. Others don't notice it, but I see it.
Toward 10 o'clock, the men servants rushed to the front door, hearing the bells of the old prince's carriage approaching. Prince Andrew and Pierre also went out into the porch.
Who's that? Asked the old prince, noticing Pierre as he got out of the carriage.
Ah, very glad. Kiss me, he said, having learned who the young stranger was.
The old prince was in a good temper and very gracious to Pierre.
Before supper, Prince Andrew, coming back to his father's study, found him disputing hotly with his visitor. Pierre was maintaining that a time would come when there would be no more wars. The old prince disputed it chaffingly, but without getting angry.
Drain the blood from men's veins and put in water instead. Then there will be no more war. Old women's nonsense, he repeated, but still he patted Pierre affectionately on the shoulder and then went up to the table where Prince Andrew, evidently not wishing to join in the conversation, was looking over the papers his father had brought from town. The old prince went up to him and began to talk business.
The marshal, a Count Rostov, hadn't sent half his contingent. He came to town and wanted to invite me to dinner. I gave him a pretty dinner. And there, look at this. Well, my boy, the old prince went on, addressing his son and patting Pierre on the shoulder. A fine fellow, your friend. I like him. He stirs me up. Another says clever things, and one doesn't care to listen. But this one talks rubbish, yet stirs an old fellow up. Well, go. Get along. Perhaps I'll come and sit with you at supper. We'll have another dispute. Make friends with my little fool, Princess Mary, he shouted after Pierre through the door.
Only now, on his visit to Bald Hills, did Pierre fully realize the strength and charm of his friendship with Prince Andrew. That charm was not expressed so much in his relations with him as with all his family and with the household. With the stern old prince and the gentle, timid Princess Mary, though he had scarcely known them, Pierre at once felt like an old friend. They were all fond of him already. Not only Princess Mary, who had been won by his gentleness with the pilgrims, gave him her most radiant looks, but even the 1-year-old Prince Nicholas, as his grandfather called him, smiled at Pierre and let himself be taken in his arms, and Michael Ivanovich and Mademoiselle Bourrienne looked at him with pleasant smiles when he talked to the old prince.
The old prince came in to supper. This was evidently on Pierre's account, and during the 2 days of the young man's visit, he was extremely kind to him and told him to visit them again.
When Pierre had gone, and the members of the household met together, they began to express their opinions of him, as people always do after a new acquaintance has left. But as seldom happens, no one said anything but what was good of him.
Oh, it's so nice, and he doesn't have any family.
I was nervous where that Count Rostov thing was going.
Me too.
I was like, oh no. It never ends well when Rostov enters the dining room.
Yeah. But no, it was good. It was good. Okay. Let's end there.
That was chapter 14. Book 5. Book 5.
How many chapters are left in this book?
I don't know. You are the official bookkeeper. Chapter keeper.
I think we'll finish book 5.
Oh yeah?
I think so. I keep a tight schedule.
If we don't talk a lot of garbage.
Just a little.
That describes us. This one talks rubbish and that stirs the soul up. That's
I feel
what
like
I do.
our like non-book content, let's call it that, has increased significantly.
I agree, and I feel kind of bad about it.
It's okay. It's all like that's part of the experience. That's why it's visible, not audible.
Yeah, you see?
Yeah.
You see what we did there?
That's
Do you
what makes us
literally
distinct.
see what we did there?
Seriously, there's gonna be merch.
I might be okay with that. We need to check if someone has already named their shit visible because it's pretty comedy work there. Don't go.
And then we could like play with the word like advisable.
My mind just exploded.
I don't know what it would be. Like we could create an ad for advisable.
I feel like a crazy person.
Okay.
But that would be like how we got sponsors and people. We'd be like, make your ad
Visible! Ah!
It's advisable to make your ad visible.
So good.
We need to not brainstorm live.
Maybe. Bye.
Scratch that.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.